Welcome once again to Superconnectivity. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is...
Phil the Sidekick Parrot.
Hey, Phil. Glad to have you. Glad to give you a nickname, although you're more than a sidekick, Phil. You're my partner in so many ways. So, big Marvel news this week. They have announced... that they have found their Iron Fist to go along with their Power Man. And Phil, do you know what the guy's name is?
I can't. Is it Finn something?
Yeah, it's Finn something with a T. Anyway, so Finn. He is he's a white guy. Spoiler: Iron Fist is a white guy, and this has caused some small dissension in the internet. I'm not quite sure how much outrage there is.
Here it is.
Yes.
British actor Finn Jones.
Finn Jones. There we go. Finn Jones. Because here's the thing. So there was this talk when Marvel was looking for an Iron Fist, and there was talk that they might go with an Asian Iron Fist. Basically because Iron Fist sort of occupies this trope of what is called the mighty whitey, which is the idea of, white guy comes into another person's culture, masters their culture better than anyone in that culture ever has, and suddenly becomes, the hero. Granted, that's true. I mean, that Iron Fist absolutely is that, but then again, that is also who Iron Fist is. And so there was some disappointment that they didn't go with an Asian actor. But then I guess the other argument on this is that when you have an Asian actor and make his superpower martial arts, that's also pretty stereotypical. So the idea of I'm the Kung Fu master and I'm Asian, it can be just as problematic as I'm the white guy who's now a Kung Fu master. And there are people that are upset about this. There are people that are okay with this. I actually wanted to make an argument here because this was something I kind of felt when they made Michael B. Jordan Johnny Storm, which is that there are times when a character's whiteness is actually part of who they are, part of what makes them kind of an interesting character. And in Johnny Storm, the idea was that Johnny Storm was a guy who lived without consequences. But part of living without consequences was the fact that he was a well-to-do white kid from Long Island. So that when he's racing hot rods, when he's getting into mischief, he's doing so with an understanding that the real danger for him is minimal. That he's not going to be held up to the standard that, quite frankly, an African-American kid who was racing hot rods and being a juvenile delinquent might be held to. And so I do think that there's an aspect of these characters that for which their whiteness is as informative as anything, as another character's. So you heard my whole thing about Michael B. Jordan and Johnny Storm's whiteness, correct? Okay. So I do think that Danny Rand's whiteness is informative of the character. One of the things that, for example, so for me, let me give you an example. For me, the whole crux of Danny Rand is summed up from a line that he had in Secret Wars 2 when Danny Rand and Power Man are talking to the Beyonder, and Danny Rand starts saying, "No, you actually understand the one thing that we all as humans seek to be, one with everything, and you once were one with anything. That is what we aspire to. Why do you need to desire anything?" And of course, Power Man is like, Danny, you don't get it, okay? And then Power Man goes into this whole thing about how money is what people desire, and this is during the very mercenary phase of Heroes for Hire, apparently. And of course, then the Beyonder turns their building into gold, which winds up, I think, is basically explains away all of their financial concerns for the rest of their life, that they had their building turned into gold, and that is how Rand Corp continues to make billions of dollars, continues to be a very wealthy organization. Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what happened to that after that, but basically, yes. So then Rand has his money. But anyway, but the idea is, the important thing in this is, and there we go, stump Charlie. There we go, you did it. We'll get to that later in this episode. But the idea is that Danny Rand has a naivete to himself, because he is this guy who just sort of, he was born rich, but he still wants to do good, Unlike say Batman, who's got a motivation of vengeance. He's just a guy like, oh, I have wealth and power, and I mastered mystical martial arts, I'll go be a superhero. Because if you had power, wouldn't you just automatically understand that with great power comes great responsibility? But of course, within that whole concept, there is this idea that, well, he was a man who never had to worry about whether or not Aunt May was going to get evicted. He was a guy who never had to worry, so it was natural for him to just see, oh, I'll become a hero. But as a result, he sometimes has this naivete, has this white privilege that informs his behavior and his approach to the world, a modern version of it might be like with Ray Palmer, the idea of just being that Boy Scout because you've never really had to struggle in your life, and of course talking about Legends of Tomorrow Ray Palmer. I'm sure the actual Ray Palmer in the book is far more nuanced. Or maybe not, I don't know. I haven't really read any Adam books, but it is this idea that I think in our quest for diversity, sometimes we can get upset about things that we don't really need to be upset about. And we can overlook the fact that sometimes these things can be important to the character. The fact that Danny Rand is white is actually important to his character. The fact that I feel that Johnny Storm was white was important to the character. And of course, when you do change a character's ethnicity, you change their story. So when you make Nick Fury black, I don't think there's anyone who thinks that was a bad choice. I think everybody in the world thinks that Samuel L. Jackson was born to play Nick Fury and is the best thing Nick Fury, ever. Granted, his competition was David Hasselhoff, but still, I think that people really get about how powerful of a character Samuel L. Jackson is, but understanding the character, that this changes aspects of his history. And we do find ourselves in a much more, especially if we have the Ultimate storyline where he is sort of, it's an interesting thing when you think about the Ultimate Nick Fury, how his story actually winds up being parallel to the what's his name, Isaiah Bradley's story, or is it Elijah Bradley? Isaiah Bradley. Isaiah Bradley is the grandfather. Elijah is the grandson. Isaiah Bradley's story, which is that he is that he was part of the secret government experiment to recreate the super soldier serum, which is how you wind up with the sort of eternal, the eternal the eternal Nick Fury instead of the Infinity Formula. It's sort of a knockoff super soldier serum, and I do wonder if they're ever going to explore that in the MCU. It's there if they want it. It would be cool if they did. But so far they have not done that. But it does inform, because then it changes who Nick Fury was in a very dramatic way. It gives him a lot more depth and a lot more interesting aspects to his character, quite frankly. Now, he's not just a two-fisted soldier. He's actually a guy who has been through this system in a very unique way and seen it from the outside and the inside. And so in that way, changing his ethnicity informs the character so dramatically and makes it a much deeper and more interesting character, I think. But at the same time, other characters, I think that that ethnic quality of them is important. Just as you would never make you would never make Power Man white for a similar way, because him growing up as this kid in Harlem is essential to his storyline. I think keeping Danny Rand white actually serves that storyline. Now, that said, if they had made him Asian, if they had made him or any other ethnicity, someone had said, they could have avoided all this trouble and made him Hispanic. And then there you go. He's not Asian, so you don't have the problem with, Asian guy, his superpower is martial arts, and not the Mighty Whitey, although you still have this idea of someone coming into a group from outside the group and being better than everyone who was born into that group. So I think you still have the same problem of Mighty Whitey, even if you make him a mighty Latino. I think that no matter how you break it down, it's problematic when the outsider becomes the master.
Yeah, but do you think maybe they decided to go with a white guy just because they could have that the contrast or the back and forth of the relationship with Luke Cage?
Well, no, I think entirely that is why they did it. I think basically, and that's sort of what I think, is that I don't think, because here's the thing about Marvel, and this is why I think that Marvel, I think has done a heck of a lot more as far as having ethnic diversity, having gender diversity, having sexual orientation diversity in the MCU, especially through their television series. I mean, this was the thing. I made this point on the Mary Sue board on this, is like, because someone had said, because of course, what's ironic about people being upset about the, keeping Danny Rand white is that, of course, in this series already we have Elektra, who's being played by an Asian woman. She's Cambodian in French, but she's Asian, which ticked off Frank Miller for some reason, but whatever. It happens. People get upset about things. So you already had one character who was made Asian in the storyline. And then, of course, you have Chloe Bennett, who is also Asian, who is Quake, who, again, was not an Asian character in the comic books, is now an Asian character in the MCU.
Wait. Chloe Bennett's Asian?
Yes.
I did not know that.
Her actual, well, I mean, like the woman playing, she's Chinese and American. Okay. Didn't you notice that her mother was Chinese in the series?
Oh! I thought you meant the actual actress. So I'm sorry.
No. Okay. The actual actress. Her actual birth name is Chloe Wang.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean she is Asian. Well, she's Asian and she's she's white and Asian, and raised in America, I believe, or possibly raised in Canada. I'm not sure. Actually, I think she might be Canadian. But she is Asian. And granted, you can make a thing. Well, she doesn't look that Asian. It's like, well, what do Asians look like? I don't know. I mean, you can say she does. She doesn't look like Mickey Rooney in Breakfast at Tiffany's, to do that callback from the last episode of Nuff Said. But she is Asian, and her.
But is that a conscious? Do you think that's a conscious decision, though? Because I did not know that. So, do you think? They get the best of both worlds. Well, in their eyes, the best of both worlds, because you have an actress who appears completely white, and then if anyone complains, they could say, "Oh, no, she's part Asian." No.
Well, I mean, that's also possibly it. I think that actually, I think what it was they wanted maybe a woman who was Asian, but that could look white, so that when you introduced the Asian mother character later, you wouldn't immediately know exactly what was going on. And I'm sure that, quite frankly, depending on how they do her makeup, she probably looks more Asian or less Asian, depending on that, but the reality is that she is Asian, and so is the actress playing Elektra, and and then of course you have Ming. I'm blanking on her name, but the actress who plays May, who is definitely Asian, and is really, I think, one of the best aspects of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. series. She is a superhero. And again, and of course she got all kinds of flack because her power is she's really good at martial arts and she's stoic, and it's like you can't win for losing sometimes. But at the same time, I think that Marvel has done a lot to be a diverse company to address this question of why are all the superheroes white, and say, well, no, they don't all have to be. And although and again, there's still more they could do. We still haven't seen Jimmy Woo on Agent Carter. Although, as one can easily point out, he was a 1950s hero. We're not at the 50s yet. But then again, we have Whitney Frost here. So, you could do that. So bringing Jimmy Woo in is a definite possibility. And it is a disappointment that they don't have Jimmy Woo in, just because Jimmy Woo is such an awesome character, and the Agents of Atlas. But of course, that's its whole other thing. That Agents of Atlas is its own thing outside of Agent Carter. And if you want to do a story about Agent Carter, bringing in a bunch of other people to be the stars of it is problematic.
Yeah, but that's another sign that Marvel's more on the diversity. They do it better than DC because we have an Agent Carter TV show, led by the lead actress. You have a woman. DC can't even get a Wonder Woman show going.
Yeah. Although to that extent, actually, I would like to say, because this is actually one thing. This is something I found very interesting. This is other news from our good friends at the Distinguished Competition. As we spoke last week, the computer models are in, and it doesn't look good for Batman v Superman. It may make it may gross $1 billion, but it cost a lot of money, and it is not. It does not have what Deadpool had, which was low budget, high return. Meaning that whether or not this movie makes a lot of money is really in question. But what's interesting is that rather than worrying about that, DC is doubling down on it. And Wonder Woman is already in production. They're already working on, and they're going to start working on production on the Justice League Part 1 right away. Before the money, which means that they're not worrying about whether or not these films make money, which goes into this more complex question about films, which is, as I've always said, is that, Guardians of the Galaxy made its money back before the first ticket was sold just on T-shirt sales alone. Because they marketed the heck out of these characters, and then the movie is basically just like sort of how the Saturday morning cartoons that we used to love as kids were just a commercial for the toy, Mm-hmm. They weren't making the cartoons to make money off the cartoon. They were making the cartoons to make money off of the ancillary products that they were making. And, which I think actually wound up working in their favor, because as a result, they just went to Marvel and said, hey, could you just write some great stories for G.I. Joes and Transformers, and didn't really care what they wrote because it was just making a cartoon. And then Marvel, because actually many people don't, but of course Marvel wrote the Transformers stories, they wrote the G.I. Joe stories, these were all Marvel productions. And right there, and Marvel said, sure, and they wrote really great stories that became iconic, and they moved the product, they moved the toys. And so now DC is sitting there saying, look, we don't have to, we would love it if these films were huge blockbusters. But quite frankly, so long as they don't lose a huge amount of money, we're going to make our money back on all the Superman T-shirts and all the Batman T-shirts, on all the Wonder Woman merchandise. And we're going right into the Wonder Woman film, which looks fantastic. And they are using my ideas, which I'm always grateful when people use my ideas, which is that they're doing basically a first Avenger Wonder Woman story where they're having her be this character in World War I We have Etta Candy in it, it seems, which got into a whole other thing with people where people were like, oh, they took a skinny actress and just had her get fat. It's like, well, actually, she's an actress who just, I guess, gets fat sometimes, as people do. Is playing Etta Candy, and I think she looks great as Etta Candy. But I guess in the role that she was most famous for on The Office, she was a bit thinner, and so some people got upset by the idea that she wasn't a fat actress prior to being Etta Candy. But quite frankly, she looks like Etta Candy. It looks great, and I for one endorse Etta Candy. I think Etta Candy is such a great character when she's done well. She can be kind of silly, but she was Wonder Woman's best friend and confidant, and I'm glad to see her in this. And I can't wait to see how they handle this story. And basically, what I figure the Wonder Woman story is going to be is it's going to be Wonder Woman coming into the world of men, fighting against evil, and setting it in World War I is kind of cool, because then, of course, you can beat up on as many Germans as you want. You don't even have to worry about swastikas, so you can still sell it in Germany and throughout Europe, and without having to create a Hydra. And then the idea is, of course, then, you probably see her go through World War I, then maybe into World War II, and then see Etta die, and have her have to watch her friends die, and then and see the world be, even after they fight for truth, justice, and equality, to see the world just continue to be filled with awfulness. And that's what leads her to withdraw from the world until, of course, a threat that we're going to see in a couple weeks. So great that she has to come back. So I'm really excited about the Wonder Woman. I'm much more excited about the Wonder Woman film than I am about the Superman v Batman film. But and again, to get into this, they just said that there's going to be an R-rated cut, which
for Blu-ray, yeah.
Yeah, and you know what it tells me is that this is a film I've got to watch before I can take my kids to. And again, it's this thing. It's like, okay, so you're gonna go into a place where I'm gonna have to decide: is this a film I can take my kids to?
Yeah, because I don't think, unlike Deadpool, I don't think it's gonna be a lot of language or sexual situations. I think it's gonna be violence. That's what they're gonna add more violence.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's got a decent amount of violence as it is, and if it's and that's the kind of stuff that bugs me, like I said, because like I say, nudity in language, that's conversations to have with kids. Violence scares kids, Violence is what caused, I'm going to tell you, the kids that had to leave Deadpool when I was there, who were crying, weren't crying because they saw Deadpool, celebrate International Women's Day. They weren't crying because Stan Lee was working in a gentleman's club. They weren't crying because Deadpool said fluffernutters, They were crying because people were getting eviscerated on screen. And that's what's scary to kids. Because really, sex and language, that's to kids, that's funny. Because they know that this is stuff they're not supposed to see, and they think that's kind of funny. But when people start dying, that's scary. And when you got to decide what you're going to take your kids to, that's what you worry about, I think, more than anything else. I mean, you can worry about sex and language because you do want to keep your kids as innocent as you can. But the violence is really the stuff that kind of crosses the line. Violence is the stuff we got to go, this is not cool. This does not make the case that I want for my kids. And so to that extent, I think, this is why I actually don't think Batman v Superman is going to do very well. I think it's going to, don't get me wrong, it's going to make a lot of money. It's going to be number one in the box office. But it's not going to be Deadpool. It's not going to be Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not going to be Ant-Man, where it's a film that no one expected to be big and got huge. It's going to be a film that everyone expected to do well. It did okay. But like Amazing Spider-Man, it's going to be underperforming. And I think it's going to be underperforming because, as the computer model said, it's an untested director, untested actors. There's not a track record of these things being profitable, and there is not a and when you get into this whole question of violence, you have to have people who start going, well, wait, is this something I can take take my kids to. The fact of the matter is, I know that Civil War is probably going to be violent, but I will not hesitate to take my kids to see it because I know however violent it is, it's going to be done in a way that I can trust, Because, we went to see Avengers Age of Ultron, and that was violent. That had violence. There was a lot of scary stuff with my kids. It was presented and handled in a way that, my kids could enjoy the adventure. Whereas I think this is going to be violent in a way that maybe they can't. It's going to be darker. It's daytime in the Marvel Universe. It's always nighttime in DC. And nighttime is a scary time, When you're in the daytime and there are monsters, at least you can see them. And then you feel like you can fight them. At nighttime, when everything is inky shadows, it's hard to see the monsters, and you don't know when they're going to jump out from behind you. And that's what scares kids, because kids get scared by not feeling in control. And, that's my take on it. That's basically my view on it. But what do you think, Phil? I'm yammering on and on. What are your thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, I don't know if everyone's trying to get on the Deadpool train now, but Batman v Superman doesn't need an R-rated cut, even if it's just going to be for the Blu-ray. If any movie this year, if they wanted to change any movie this year to R-rated, I would say maybe Suicide Squad.
Oh, yeah.
Because, they're the villains. They're the ones who are going to use violent, if violence or nudity or language would be anywhere, yeah, I would say there.
Yeah, but of course they're still PG-13. Yeah. And the thing about it is that because they're announcing there's going to be this R-rated cut, that means they already made an R-rated cut. They already have the R-rated cut ready to go.
That's why I think it's just going to be extra violence, because there's probably something on the cutting room floor that they're just going to add. They're going to add. Yeah.
But that's the thing that bugs me, is that tells me that they were already in that balance mode. This was already going to be. And granted, you can say, well, it comes from the Frank Miller version, and it is a dark and violent world, and granted, dark and violent superheroes have their place. We all loved Jessica Jones. We all loved Daredevil. So, yeah. And, again, it's not a problem to be dark and violent. But there comes a point when you've got to say, it's one of the things that people are talking about with Deadpool is that the worst thing that Hollywood can do is take from it the wrong lessons. Yes. That what made Deadpool good was that it was a good film. It was a well-written film. And this is the thing. You could, and we said this in our Lost episode of Marvelverse DC, the Deadpool edition. Yeah, it's Lost, kids. We're sorry, but I'm going to try and cover some of it. Over the next few weeks when we talk about it. One of the things we said was that really making this film PG-13 would not have been that hard. It really would not have been. You didn't have to, because as we said, getting an R is the easiest thing in the world to get. They got their R. Mm-hmm. But if you had wanted to make this PG-13, you would not have had to cut anything from it, really. There was no point of the story that you would have needed to. You had to put a little less CGI blood in, and have the make it a Jersey strip club where it's a go-go club and the girls keep their clothes on for the most part. You could have didn't have to be an Ontario strip club. It could have been a Jersey strip club, and
they're basically going to PG-13 it for TV. So yeah,
exactly.
They won't show as much blood. Yeah, the whole strip club thing. They'll take out International Women's Day. And they'll just bleep all the language. Yeah.
Exactly. And you could have done that easily, and it would not have been a problem. It's great that they didn't have to. It's great that it was a R-rated film, and they were upfront and said this is going to be an R-rated film, and no one was objecting to it. Well, there were people who objected to Deadpool being R, but like I said, I would have if all the boys wanted to go see it, I would have been happy to take them and have conversations after. Because I didn't think there was anything that was so horrible in this that I couldn't have a conversation after to talk about it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it, first off, the reason why you can have a conversation after a film like this is because it was a well-written film. Because the story was internally consistent, was intelligent, was well-written, you know.
Yeah, any of that stuff
well.
that makes it an R, I don't think it was there just for shock value. It was part of the story.
Exactly. And I do think it was a good story first. And someone had made this point about, and this was the thing with someone, I forget which writer it was, but he was basically saying, you know, making an R-rated Superman doesn't make a lot of sense because he's not an R-rated character.
No.
And what makes a story good is being true to the character. And I do think that is one of the problems here, is whether or not they're being true to Superman, whether or not they're being true to Batman. Honestly, although I know what Frank Miller did with making Batman and Superman enemies, I never quite got his point of view on it. His point of view on it was that, of course, Superman is the establishment and Batman, you know, he's a vigilante. And so that's why they weren't friends. But really, I think in a lot of ways it was very much a deconstruction of the Batman and Superman mythos, and much like other guys when they tell alternate, sort of like Old Man Logan, and sort of like other, like when Mark Millar does these things, where I think Mark Millar likes to deconstruct characters and kind of doesn't think deeply about their history and how they got to their icon status. He likes to take the superficial and deconstruct it, and that's cool, and you can tell great stories doing that, but I think that sometimes you lose the essence of the character. Mm-hmm. You know, I've never felt that, you know, although, you know, you can certainly make the argument that, you know, the Maestro Hulk fit into the Old Man Logan structure of Hulk as villain, and certainly the Hulk has been a villain many times, and of course has the green and purple color scheme that denotes him as a villain. Secondary colors makes you evil. Everyone knows that. They did a whole thing in Future Foundation about this, about how if you're, you know, how that's how you denote a villain, is that villains were secondary colors, whereas heroes were primary colors. And it is amazing how common this trope is. And they make the point that the Hulk is mostly a villain, even though we think of him in a heroic sense. He's mostly a villain because he's mostly destroying stuff, you know. But so you can make that argument. What I always objected to in Old Man Logan was the idea that they made She-Hulk part of it. That, you know, that basically in that universe, when the Hulk basically takes out Abomination, it's him and Jen who are ruling the land. And I've always thought that didn't make sense. The Hulk you could see going on and being evil. It was much harder for me to accept that from She-Hulk. But anyway, but this is something that writers do, and when you're telling an alternate universe story, it works. But I think when you're making this your flagship brand, I think it's problematic for DC. But maybe they're going to pull it out. Maybe it's going to be a much better film than that. But, you know, I do wonder if you have what you'll call the Tony Stark problem with Batman, which is that nobody wants to hear about your problems, Bruce. You're a billionaire. Whatever your problems are, they're not that bad, you know? Yeah, because, you know, I mean, really, Bruce, grow up, you know? Boo-hoo, your parents are dead. You know, you're also a billionaire. And, you know, you're kind of, and you go around punching poor people, you know, and that's really kind of the worst thing about the whole Batman mythos is that he's basically a rich guy who basically goes and punches poor people for a living. That's what he does. All those henchmen, they're not henching because, oh, hey, this was the career path for me. It's like, no, they were desperate and they turned to a life of crime. And then, as it turns out, if you're in Gotham, crazy people wind up getting into crime. And as you're henching, it's like, oh, okay, I guess we're henching for the Joker now. It's a union gig, I guess. Joker has dental, maybe. I don't know, but but basically, yeah. So it's a rich guy who beats up on poor people. That's the plot of Batman. He goes into the poorest neighborhoods in Gotham and beats people up who are poor.
Forget all that. I just never know why anyone works for the Joker, because usually he kills at least one or two of his henchmen. So why would anyone work for the Joker?
Well, you've noticed that since they've made the Joker get crazier over the years, he has fewer and fewer henchmen.
Oh yeah.
I mean, back in the day, when Cesar Romero was the Joker, he had lots of henchmen with great clown names, but he wasn't killing anybody. He was just working out his plans. Mm-hmm. Once they started having him kill everybody, I think then he kind of wound up with Harley. The one person who would work with him was the crazy girl who was obsessed with him, who he was also in an abusive relationship with. Although, to that extent with Harley, I wanted to talk about this. I'm sure you read, what book was that? Where Harley basically beats beats the stuffing out of the Joker.
Oh, Harley Quinn 25. What was that, last week?
Yeah. That has been seen by a lot of people as being a really great turning point in the Harley Quinn character. Mm-hmm. And I do wonder, and someone made this great point, is that kind of justified her loss of the Harley Quinn outfit, because here she is saying, I am my own woman, I am not your puppet, I am not your plaything anymore. And that was pretty cool. I do wonder how they're going to explore that with the Suicide Squad story, because she still clearly has a thing for the Joker, although I wonder if she's going to betray the Joker in that. And that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Will be interesting.
Yeah, or he tries to kill her or something, and that ends the relationship.
Yeah, well, that can usually hurt your relationship when you try to kill someone. Especially if the person you're in the relationship is the person you're trying to kill. Anyway. But yeah, so this is but this is sort of where we're at. But
mm-hmm.
Whether or not DC is going to do well in this, we don't know. With their movies, with their universe, but they have committed to their universe. They've committed to their expanded universe. They're going to go forward with it regardless. And like I said, I think that's because they realize they don't need to make money on the films. The films are a sales are a sales device to build the brand and to go from there. And it'll be interesting to see where they go with it. Of course, it's entirely possible that if Batman v Superman is a complete flop, they may take some other tack on it. But I don't think it's going to be a complete flop. I think it's going to do well enough. And I actually think Wonder Woman, which I think Wonder Woman's the next one after this, right? It's Batman v Superman, then Wonder Woman comes out. And I think Wonder Woman is going to be their big hit. I think Wonder Woman's going to be their tentpole. And who knows, maybe they kind of wanted Batman v Superman to not do as well, so that when Wonder Woman does do well, people will go, oh, see, that's what a movie should be. And I don't know, there could be some three-dimensional chess going on here. I don't know. But it's hard to say. But yeah, so that's that. And okay, so moving on from this, there was one other thing I really wanted to talk about, which was my idea for the Superior Four. For those who listened last week, you heard me speak about how disappointed I was that there is not a current Fantastic Four book. And I made the point that Marvel since they have now the reformed Doctor Doom in their books, or a Doctor Doom who's trying to reform, that what they really need to do is to tell a story about the Superior Four, about Doctor Doom, with the Fantastic Four being absent, building his own Fantastic Four team. And I actually wrote a letter to Marvel where I said, I think this would be a great idea, just to their letters pages. And I told them, you may already be working on this, and they may well be already working on this. And if you're not, I don't make any claims on this. I would just love it if this was something that you guys would do. And now you and I were talking earlier about, ways to approach this. And, to me, I think what is essential, that if you're going to do a Doctor Doom Superior Four, you got to have characters that would A, be willing to work with Doctor Doom, and B, see, that you want characters that want to be heroes and are willing to work with Doctor Doom. And to that extent, I thought that, one character that I thought would be a definite get for it would, of course, be Sabretooth. Because Sabretooth, he is like a good guy now. He wants to be a good guy. Nobody trusts him. Right now he's with, he's with the Magneto's X-Men. So that is its own complex thing. So you might not be able to get him for it, but I thought he'd be a good addition. Additionally, I thought, Otto, of course, would be a great addition if you can get him a new body. Or actually, I was thinking, one thing you could do is you could put his brain in a Herbie robot, and that's like very, very Fantastic Four-y. But it strikes me that Otto's going to need to redeem himself in Ms. Marconi's eyes. That he can't be a villain. If he wants to be with Marconi, he has to be a hero.
But here's a nice twist. What if Doom gives Otto a body, either through science or mysticism or whatever, but he built some sort of thing into the body where Otto has to obey him?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously if Doom's going to do that, he's going to do that. I do think that Doom... You know what? Actually, that one actually makes a lot of good sense, because obviously Doom is going to be worried about Otto slipping back into his villainous ways, because of course Otto doesn't have the moral strength that Doom does.
Or just betraying him. Yeah.
But I think that however they approach it, and truthfully, I think that Otto, much like Sabretooth, has a difficulty getting into it, because I think that whoever's writing Spider-Man may have plans for Otto, just like whoever's writing X-Men may have plans for Sabretooth. So getting them into it might be a little difficult, but those would be those are the two obvious choices for the Superior Four. The next two ideas I had are Volcana, Marsha Rosenberg, and the reason I think she would be a good, first off, she gets you. She actually works out great because she has a volcanic ash form as well as her plasma form, so she actually kind of meets Fantastic Four qualifications in that she can be like your Human Torch, or she could be the Thing. She also is a female, so she could also be standing in the
Invisible Woman.
What do you call it? The Invisible Woman role. Although in my idea, I'd have two women, because I'd also put Sharon Ventura, the She-Thing, on this as well. Who also we've had in recent things. She's been in prison. She's, but she does want to do good. And both of these characters are characters that have relationships with Dr. Doom, have worked with him in the past, and have reasons to believe when he says, I am a good guy now, and I'm going to use everything in my power to be a good guy and to help you if you can help me be the new Fantastic Four. And that's three of our four right there. You've got She-Thing and Volcana and Dr. Doom, and that's a pretty good thing. And then you just need a fourth person, maybe Sabretooth, maybe Otto, or someone else, some other hero or villain. And
what
you know
about,
what?
What about Claw? He worked with him during the first Secret Wars.
Yeah, and the problem with Claw is I don't see any reason why Claw would want to be a good guy. That's the thing. Who might be, but again, she, Moonstone actually kind of was interested in being a hero when she was when she was on the Dark Avengers. She liked aspect, but of course now she's on the New Thunderbolts, and that's the thing, is like a lot of good heel face villains are kind of joining in with the Thunderbolts now under Bucky, which is going to be cool. So this villains turning hero thing, I think I think can be a little bit of a difficult niche to fill, because I think a lot of the best ones are being taken.
I just had an idea. You were talking about other geniuses on the team, and I think I would have a motivation why he would help Doom. The Wizard.
Oh yes,
he has the brain power, and Doom could basically play on his ego and be like, okay, you think you're so smart, prove it, help me save the world.
Absolutely, that would be great. Or who knows, maybe Bentley 23 comes back.
But then in The Wizard and Doom, you also have two guys who are out to prove they're better than Reed Richards too.
Yes, and that would be fantastic. So that would be a great one to have there. The biggest problem with having another brain on it is that obviously you do have people butting up against each other, and the Wizard is an egotist on Doom level. So, although it would be nice, because Doom doesn't really do the tech right now. It might be nice to have a guy with that tech advantage of the Wizard. So that might be cool.
I even came up with a plot. For the series.
Oh, great! What's your plot idea?
He forms this team, but then they have everyone gunning for them: superheroes, supervillains, Shield, everyone. Because let's say the incursions become public knowledge, and so the whole world's like, "Oh my God, Doctor Doom tried to destroy the entire universe." So everyone's gunning for him, basically to make sure he doesn't do something like that again.
That's pretty cool, yeah. I mean, and certainly people would definitely be, we'll have to, who knows, maybe that's part of the standoff thing, because we know that people are aware that the incursions were a thing, though people don't necessarily remember exactly what happened. They certainly don't remember Doctor Doom destroying and reforming the universe. So if more knowledge comes out after standoff, that might be a very good reason why people are against Doom and his Superior Four. Who also might be an interesting addition to the team is Crystal, a former Fantastic Four member who is, a member of the Inhumans, and she may feel that there's a place for her there, and so so actually that might be cool. You have Doom and the three women. You have Doom, Crystal, Volcana, and Sharon Venter, She-Thing, and that might be pretty awesome, actually. So, that might be pretty cool,
because that's a good choice, because I mean, humans are big now at Marvel. Crystal has worked with Sharon Ventura before on Ben Grimm's Fantastic Four.
Yes. And and there's thinking, you should have some Fantastic Four member, but I'm thinking, Johnny's not going to trust Doom, Ben's not going to trust Doom, and they also have their own things they're doing right now. But the Inhumans might actually be willing to give Doom the benefit of a doubt, because goodness knows they've certainly been through the ringer a few times. They've been villains and heroes, and so that might be cool. So there we go. So So this is the idea that we were tossing out there, and this is my thoughts on the idea of a Superior Four. And what I would really like now is you, our listeners, I want you to write in your thoughts on the Superior Four. Who do you think Doom should recruit for his Superior Four? Make sure that there's someone who has a reason to want to work with Doom, or a reason to want to work with other members of the team. Have them be people who want to do good. It can't just be about money or fame, or it could be about money or fame if they are motivated to do good with it, And write us in. Let us know what you think of either say, I like the Superior Four idea, I'd read a book like that, or, who you really need on the Superior Four is this character, that character. Write in, let us know. Phil, if they want to write to you and let you talk about and tell you their thoughts on the Superior Four or anything else, how can they do that?
Well, the easiest way, they can talk that, anything Marvel, anything DC, nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I am at nightwingpdp. But before I go on, write to us. Tell us your thoughts for the Superior Four, but also, people, write to Marvel. Tell them, say, hey, I heard this podcaster, Charlie Esser, and he has a great idea for a book for you. You should let him write this.
Yeah, please do that too. That would be great.
Because here's another plot point I'll throw out. I mean, this book would be great. If the whole world's gunning for Doom and his team, someone gets the brilliant idea of like reactivating Christophe Renard, making him think he's Doctor Doom again. So basically, then you would have, this good guy Doom now basically fighting his past evil self.
That's interesting.
Fighting his dark side, yeah.
Yeah, okay, very cool. So write into Marvel. Write into Marvel, just so you know, that's mheroes@marvel.com. That's their email address. I know that. It's saved on my things. I used to write a lot of letters to Marvel, and I have to get back to writing more letters to Marvel. Get myself in the letters pages. So write to Phil at nightwingpdp@gmail.com. And where can they follow you on Twitter when we tweet things?
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying on World's Finest today. Usually when all the shows are on, I'm live tweeting Monday through Thursday. You can find me at nightwingpdp. I've been doing Supergirl Mondays, but Gotham's coming back, so Monday's usually Gotham, Tuesday Flash, Wednesday Arrow, and Thursday Legends of Tomorrow. Oh, yes. And of course, if you'd like to tweet along with me, where I'm actually tweeting pretty much all these things too, believe it or not, you can follow me at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. And of course, write to me with your thoughts on the Superior Four, Superconnectivity, Batman v Superman. You name it, I'll talk about it. And we want to start a new thing, which is Stump the Experts. If you think I am an expert, if you think I'm not an expert, write in with your question or thought or thing you've always wondered about any Marvel comic. Or even DC. Maybe we'll get Lilith in here to answer some questions on DC. You can write to us with that either at Phil's email address or at my email address, superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. Speaking of superconnectivity blogs, I gotta write some more of those. Okay, this is our extra long episode of Superconnectivity. It has been great connecting with you this week. Please connect with us again. Give this man a chance, Marvel.